Today, Rick and I got some stories from the road from Yellowstone here in Moab, plus just a quick little intro to some shooting with the 180 to 600. Well, Rick, Yellowstone. Yellowstone was fun?
Yellowstone was a blast.
Yellowstone was a blast. Although it is nice to be here in like 85-degree Moab.
Yes.
In the wake of it. We had a great group. We had kind of mixed weather. We had some wildlife, we had some landscape.
Yeah, we had a couple of decent sunsets and we had some rain.
Yeah, we had a
and
little bit of
snow
rain.
Actually.
Yeah, even a little bit of snow. We kind of had the whole gamut. And it was a great exercise in working as a group and scouting and thinking about where to be in what conditions. And I think everybody had a really good time.
I think so too.
Yeah, we had a great group of photographers. I definitely learned a lot from them on this trip.
Yeah.
I saw through some other eyes, and I really think that these workshops, that's like,
the big thing, right?
It is.
You know, that's when we talk about the workshops, at the end of the workshop, everyone will tell you that the image reviews were one of the most fun things that we did.
Yeah.
Because you get to see how people, you know, are all in the same general area and yet have their own eye and work the scenes in different ways. It was a great workshop.
It really was. We're gonna go through some images, and I might even toss in a couple images from some of the students on this particular workshop, because they were just phenomenal.
Yes, they were.
And we had a really great place. We had this wonderful house that was just like a killer basement area. It was dark, beautiful for us to put up our really high quality LG OLED TV and go through images with people, and it was just fantastic. So one of the things that we had was rain, like we said.
Yep.
And
we knew going in there that there was going to be some weather challenges.
Right.
It was starting to get cooler. They were looking like it was going to just pour for a while, but you know, when we go to a place like Yellowstone, there might be rain, but there's going to be drama, there's going to be high clouds, there's going to be all sorts of cool stuff, and sometimes the sun might even open up the landscape at the end of the day.
Right. But this particular trip, when we went down into the Geyser Basin, we've kind of picked, well, that's, you know, there's interesting landscapes, and you don't necessarily need as interesting a light for that type of stuff, just because the actual, you know, the geysers and all the Grand Prismatic Spring itself. Actually, the Grand Prismatic Spring is pretty great when you're out there in overcast, even light. You know, bright, harsh light can actually be a real detriment when you're walking around that. So we went there, and then the weather really started deteriorating. We timed it perfect to hit Old Faithful, and we went to Old Faithful's eruption, got some food there. And then just because the weather was deteriorating a bit, we went into Firehole Canyon.
That's a beautiful place.
And it was just beautiful. We'd scouted it. We'd spent a bit of time figuring out where we could get in closer to the river as it flowed through there, where there were some gorgeous cascades and waterfalls. And then we lucked into that osprey nest, and that was pretty fantastic. We had a mother osprey feeding a
recalcitrant baby.
Yeah, a fledgling that probably should be fishing for itself, and you could tell she was a little miffed about still having to feed him, but you know, it was great. We had a really good time photographing that. I think everybody had a good time. And along the way, you know, on this whole trip, we had bison, we had pronghorn, we had osprey, and I really got a good chance to be working with this new 180 to 600 millimeter lens that Nikon has put out. We're gonna show some images from the trip right now. Some of them are from this lens, but know that next week we're going to be talking about this lens. I'm going to go through and really give you my opinion of it. I will say that I think if you have, you know, the 400 TC or the 600 TC or the 800 millimeter lens or even the 400 4.5, I don't know that this is the lens for you, but for a person on a budget who loves to photograph wildlife, this lens is way better than it's got any right to be. It's sharp. It's got just wonderful image quality throughout its range. It's a little heavy.
I would say it is heavy.
It's a little front balanced. It takes a lot of room in your bag. I really don't like its tripod collar, but you know, we'll talk about all that in a separate video, and I'll go through and look at some image quality comparisons with the 100 to 400 and this lens. But for right now, let's just look at some images from Yellowstone. All right, so I'm here in Lightroom Classic, and I have a grid full of images from Yellowstone, as well, you know, both of Rick and mine, as well as some of the workshop participants, just to show what an amazing trip this was. And I'm gonna kick it off right off the bat with some images out of that 180 to 600, because I know a ton of people will be interested. And you can see the exposure data. You know, this is an image, it was quite a ways away from me, backlit. It handles backlight really well. This is with the 180 to 600 zoomed all the way out, and the 1.4 teleconverter. You know, I think it's a little trickier to get nice sharp images with the 1.4, but you can see this buffalo's eye and these birds, that it's rendering a relatively sharp image with the 1.4 teleconverter on it. I mean, I think optically, this lens is pretty astounding. And this is a pretty heavy duty crop. If I was to go in and show you the crop, you know, this is off the Z9. That's a pretty, let's hit tab here. You can get a good view of that 46 megapixel image. That's a pretty hefty crop. So, not too shabby. All these birds coming in to pick, you know, bugs and stuff off of the buffalo, or off the bison. I shouldn't say buffalo, should I? You know, here's that lens without the 1.4 on it, nice and sharp. Here's a little trio of images I shot with it. Bear that I like to call the romancing of curly benthorn. This cow bison has a little oddly shaped horn here, and they were definitely feeling a little bit amorous that morning. This is a cool final pair of images that I'll show from this lens. I'll do a complete review of this lens where we'll really look at some images, and I shot some more landscapes with it as well as a big moon shoot in Moab, and we'll talk a little bit about all that next week when I really give a rundown on what I like and don't like about this lens. But I will say that optically, I really like it. Even though I find its handling annoying and its lens foot just barely usable, the whole collar system on it's terrible, but it is optically a fine lens and very, very hand-holdable. You know, here we got a 600 millimeter shot of this coyote, and you can see it's just nice and sharp. You know, to compare, here's the 100 to 400. Now the coyote had moved a little further away and into a background that was a little closer to it, but you can see the 100 to 400 with the 1.4 teleconverter, also, you know, nice and sharp on the coyote's eye. You know, I think it's maybe nicer not to be using the teleconverter. Here you can see we're at f6.3. When you throw that 1.4 teleconverter on the 100 to 400, you drop to f8. Still totally usable, but I don't think you're going to be sad with either of those setups. I personally prefer the 100 to 400, but then I have the 800 PF. We'll talk more about all that. It's a great lens that I know a ton of people are going to love. Here's just a cool view that I feel is emblematic of the north end, the wildlife end of the park, kind of on the high plateau up on the route to Logan Valley, the Blacktail Plateau. You know, we had this wonderful mix of clouds and light. This is an HDR shot. There was really bright light in the sky. You know, and this is the kind of natural HDR work that I do all the time. A single frame would never have captured the highlights and shadows in this, you know, and you're not going to get neutral density out and deploy it handheld, and not to or graduated neutral density. Plus, graduated neutral density would be darkening these mountaintops. Just the beauty of being able to shoot this 3 stops underexposed on the meter, 3 stops overexposed, blend it, and get all the highlights and shadows to pull up an image like this of the crew out working in complicated light. And like I said, we had this dramatic weather in the light, out of the light. Every now and then it would just come play across the landscape with these beautiful clouds. You know, whenever we see weather and potential thunderstorms and rain, I always tell workshop participants, hey, that's just drama. Here we got David out in the Lamar Valley. You know, and here's the example. You know, I don't think that anybody, this is Mark and Rich out shooting with their long lenses. You know, Rich has the 800 up there. Mark's working with the 100 to 400. You know, we were shooting wildlife, we were shooting landscapes. The 100 to 400 is a magnificent lens. You know, this is clearly my choice to have these two lenses that these two participants are working with right here. We had a great time just running around, stopping whenever the light looked amazing. We did a little work here in this canyon-y section with just beautiful. There was light playing in and out among the canyon walls. I was rigged for shooting wildlife, and I just didn't change lenses. This is a landscape shot with my 800 PF, you know, and that lens is so sharp, you know, and fun little abstract of the canyon wall with the lichen in this bush. I took that lens down. We were at Swan Lake, and we were thinking about photographing the Milky Way there. We were hoping the clouds would clear. Well, the clouds got more intense. These thunderstorms started coming overhead. There was dramatic light. I walked down to the lake to see if there were any abstracts on the water, and there was a whole flock of ducks that spooked. And I was able to get this shot that I really enjoy of them all taking off with the 800, and then did do a few abstracts of just the light on the water, interesting patterns. Meanwhile, you know, these thunderstorms kept coming through and sort of grazing us. One of them got us just a little bit wet. We all kind of bailed into the van with our stuff. But in that intermittent play of light, I just love this image that Rick captured. I'm sure he's going to work on it a ton more. These are all just barely edited. I'm throwing them up here quick. These are just images that we showed in class, but I love this panorama that Rick shot when there was light playing on the mountains. You know, I came back up. I didn't get light on the mountains, but I did see some beautiful drama in the sky on my way back to the group from down at the lake. A couple of us were down at the lake shooting. And then, you know, one of the last thunderstorms that came through just brought in some beautiful color in the clouds. There's Tim set up bracing with the interpretive sign, you know, because we jumped in the van because of a little rain squall that came through and then popped back out and wanted to catch this color. It was a lovely, lovely evening. We had a fantastic morning, beautiful dawn up at Mammoth Hot Springs, which is close to where we stayed in Gardner. Here's Rick and Carl out there working the scene just pre-dawn. And then when the light hits up there, here's another HDR image. You know, it just gets spectacular. I love the backlit steam and just the way the light plays out there on all these pools, and beautiful stuff. You know, here's another image, another reason why I love the 100 to 400. I slapped these two images in here because I can come back to close to 100. You know, here I'm at 110 and give you a landscape shot while we're out shooting bison, you know, that just speaks the northern into Yellowstone to me, northern Montana, just that, you know, this whole scene feels Montana to me. And then you can zoom in, you know, here we are at 400 millimeters with that lens, the little calf scratching his chin. We had, of course, went down to the geyser basin. Here's Larry and I working on his camera a little bit. I loved it. I love this. Feels like it's like the album cover for the workshop, but it's really our Old Faithful shot. Part of the crew there with me. Rick got this nice shot of us. You know, we had a little hike in the rain to take photos of the Grand Prismatic Spring, and it was actually beautiful. There was a lot of wonderful little detail, long lens extractive shots from up high on the overlook looking down, and the light was just fantastic. As Rick and I talked about going into Firehole Canyon, just a beautiful place. There's all kinds of magnificent gorge, river, stream scenes to photograph. We had scouted it a number of times and always been in bright daylight, not the right time to photograph a forested river. But we got out there on this rainy day, and it was the perfect place to be. You know, we had that sort of up our sleeve for a beautiful place to go on a rainy day. And I got to throw in this image that Paul captured of me, you know, just epic. I love this shot. So all credit to Paul Sheen. This is just a beautiful image, and I may wind up printing this one or just throwing it in the workshop. But you know, he could have content aware filled me or used the remove tool in Photoshop or the perfect eraser in OM1, but I don't know, for me, sometimes a person in the landscape just makes the whole scene. And yeah, so this is one of my favorite images of myself, and huge thanks, Paul. I love this shot. And you know, as Rick and I said, we ran into this osprey nest, and there was a little bit of fall color in the hills. I found an angle was a little awkward place to get to with the 800 millimeter lens, but this is the adolescent osprey up atop the nests. And here's his mom bringing in some dinner. You could tell she was a little bit annoyed and ate part of the fish across the stream and then finally brought it in. I'm guessing it's a him. I don't know. I usually think boys are later to leave the nest than girls, but who knows? But here's half the fish coming in to a really excited, hungry young osprey. And then we wrapped things up. We had a wonderful, wonderful kind of cold evening up in the canyon. It was just before it started to snow a little bit. We actually had a little bit of snow coming out here. I showed you a little scene of driving
So we dressed a little bit warmer. Here's Brian with Rick at the waterfall, and we goofed around and took some photographs. Here's another reason why I love that 100 to 400. I just love using it in the landscape. It is so sharp and so versatile, and it lets you capture totally different scenes than I would if I were limited to that 70 to 200 that fits in my normal bag. So I just want to say what a fantastic crew this was, and what a fun time. And I thought I'd pull a couple images from each participant and just showcase what awesome work they did. This is from Brian Rossborough. I love this HDR panorama from up in the hills. I love this sunrise shot at Mammoth Hot Springs. A group of people had gone down below with me to photograph some first light hitting the wall down below, but we probably should have stayed up above where Brian was. Sometimes you gamble. I've been up here for dawn before. I could tell the clouds were setting up beautiful at the last second, and we couldn't get back up here, but the beautiful use of that light. My good friend Carl Jarvinen, I love this shot from Swan Lake of that last light playing out there, and a fantastic shot in the rain of the mother bringing the fish in. Really, really good stuff. David Brown, he was down with me capturing that first light, and I just love this shot of the juvenile osprey. The detail in that, the tongue, the rain, so ridiculous. John Pattenden, I don't think anybody else in the workshop happened to notice when we were at this location that there was fall color in that one tree. And that one aspen is just beautiful. And then this shot, the black and white, with the steam coming up out of the pools, just really, really works. Super cool. Larry, that's an awesome Papa Buffalo or Papa Bison shot. And then I love this osprey. It's so fun. Mark, Steven, such an interesting, it looks so much like snow here at Mammoth, and capturing this one little detail in these steps and the lines. And then I love this composition of the bison crossing the road, crossing the hill in front of the road. And it was busy that day, so timing it so there were no cars on the road. Really, really nice job there. Really nice job. Paul Sheen, Paul took that beautiful photo of me in Firehole Canyon. Here's a great image of the storm coming in. Paul, you did some fantastic work. And I love this when we were walking back from the overlook at Grand Prismatic Spring, the way that you captured that fence and just brought it, like the lines of this leading straight to that little steaming fumarole and the person fishing out there, the person watching off the bridge. This scene just works so ludicrously well for me. Rich, another really great shot composition in Mammoth Hot Springs with the shallow depth of field and the light playing out on that just crazy spring running down all that calcified mineral. And then this shot in Firehole Canyon, beautiful. Such nice work. Tim did some amazing work, including working with this tree at Mammoth Hot Springs. It's a tree I've worked with a few times, and I don't feel like I've captured quite as nice a composition as this. I think I maybe tried to work vertical too much with it. It's beautiful. This is a really nice way to isolate this. And then, this bison chewing the grass, what a fantastic close-up. Again, with the 100 to 400, I love that lens, its sharpness, the way it just renders the world, and the versatility going all the way from down at 100 up to 400. These are the kinds of reasons why I actually got rid of my beloved 70 to 200 when I got a hold of this lens. It's just so good, I wind up throwing it in the bag all the time. Tony took this with his cell phone. This is the iPhone 11. He was up here on this beautiful morning, and I just, there's nothing wrong with using your phone. And then once again, finding this little piece of color in an extractive world, seeing that tree on the horizon and the way that he's got the foreground, the cloud, and the midground with this tree as the star of the show. After the fact, can go in and zap the telephone line along there. These are all quick and dirty images just to show the whole group what we were out there seeing. And that's the beauty of these workshops. Like Rick and I were saying, it really is looking through everyone else's eyes and seeing the same scenes from a different perspective, from a different artistic vantage. expands your own eye. That's what's so great about these trips and about these workshops and about working in a group with other photographers in the same location and doing image reviews. It's just such a great collaborative process.
All right, so I think you can see we had a great trip, wonderful group of people, lots of fun conditions, learned a ton in Yellowstone. It's always great there.
I love Yellowstone. I really do.
It's just unique and different, that big Montana landscape with all that crazy geothermic stuff and wildlife. But it's always nice to get to Moab too, especially this time of year. You know, the crowds are thinning out, the days are still really warm, the nights are cool. We got David Archer here with us. We're about to kick off a workshop tomorrow with another great crew of people.
Last workshop of the year.
Last workshop of the year. Although we're going scouting in Scotland in a couple weeks.
Yeah,
so.
That's not really a workshop though.
No.
Next year.
Next year. So, all right, everybody. I hope everyone's staying safe, staying creative. You know, again, links to all the stuff that we use and recommend is over at my site, hudsonhenry.com/ATS links. You can just click right there, or, you know, go into this video's full description to get a link and sign up on, or, you know, just check out the gear. Those links help us out. Office hours?
I don't know. 2 weeks from now.
Is it the 10th? October
I think it's
10th.
the 10th, yeah.
October 10th, I
Tuesday.
think. Tuesday, October 10th. We'll be talking about sharing some images from these trips, taking your questions. So sign up for that over at hudsonhenry.com/office hours. Again, you can click or go into this video's full description. And, you know, we will be seeing you next week. Good enough. It'll work. Might be a little punchy. If anybody's at the end of the video there, they're not going to care.
Yeah, they're going to laugh.